Oh, Peter, you're showing off your
Yep.
new language.
Whenever I've spoken to you before here, I've been in the capacity as an independent Yellow Pages consultant. And today I'm in quite a different capacity because I now stand before you as General Manager of MMRD in Myanmar. I'm very proud to have that role, and I'll explain why. In recent years as a consultant, I've worked with several Asian companies, and I built up a desire in that time to want to live and to work in Asia. Never quite had a financial model which would allow me to do that. But having worked on several consultancy assignments with MMRD, and then being offered the opportunity by the owner of the company to come and be general manager of the publications division, I think my decision time required slightly less than 1 minute to say, yes, I want to do that. So I've been since June based in Yangon. I'm fully resident. I'm giving it full 100% commitment, and I'm going to again explain why I'm so keen and so committed to want to do that. MMRD is originally a market research company that now has several businesses, and the publications division is about 80% of the total. And the company's been publishing Yellow Pages style directories since 1992, and I'm also going to introduce you to two of our products in a moment. I think, and it's become evident even here in Asia in the last few days, that we require first a small geography lesson. Myanmar is not extremely well known, and so I'm going to give you some facts and figures about the country of Myanmar. I'm then going to talk somewhat about our company and the products that we have, about new products which we've launched and have additional products planned for next year. And then I'm going to talk about the lessons that I've learned in my consultancy capacity about the whole transformation process in Yellow Pages. And I'm going to put that in the context that the lessons, both good and bad, that I bring with me to MMRD, all seem to be entirely appropriate even in the Myanmar market in the coming years. So I'm going to highlight some of those issues which I think will be equally appropriate in a market like Myanmar. So here's the geography lesson. Myanmar is over 51 million people. As you can see from the map, it is bordered by Thailand, Laos, China, India, and Bangladesh. So it's a long country. You can see that it's not a wealthy country. It is, I think, on any scale, a country that is generally poor. GDP proves that. We're going through a high inflation rate at the moment. The major cities are Yangon. Yangon used to be the capital city. It's about 7 million people. The capital city since 2002 is Naypyidaw, which is a new town which has been built as the base for the government. And Mandalay is the second largest city, which is around 3 million people. You can see from the demographics that it's also a very, very young country. Life expectancy is not high, and you can see that I think in excess of 50% of the people are under the age of 30. This is also reflected in our age range within our company, which has an average age of also under 30, until I came. Internet penetration is growing, but still only stands at around 20%. And in typical fashion, the metro areas of Yangon and Mandalay have considerably higher penetration rates, and the overall national average is brought down because the rural areas has very low penetration. I'm just going to mention mobile penetration in a little bit more detail on the next slide. And the final point is that websites for companies of all sizes currently stands at around 17%. When I first started visiting Myanmar in 2011, internet access was restricted. The government only allowed certain people to have access, and mobile telephony was also restricted for the following reason, that you can see that at that stage a SIM card cost in excess of $1,000, which meant that it was way out of the range of most people. So so that mobile penetration was less than 1%. My second visit in 2012, that had changed. And now everybody was on Facebook. And now, as you can see in 2015, the monopoly position of MPT, the Myanmar telephone company, has been removed for mobile telephony. Telenor and Ooredoo have considerable subscriber numbers. And so now mobile penetration has increased rapidly to 64% because a SIM card now costs equivalent of $1, just over $1. So this obviously had a major impact on consumer behavior and on buying behavior. Of the 64% mobile penetration, 80% of those have an iPhone. So we have already a very high rate of online usage through mobile telephony. We're not alone in the market. We are the leading publisher, and we publish the following directories. The Yangon directory, which I'm going to show to you. For many of you from with a Yellow Pages background, here's a moment of nostalgia.
Yes, that looks like an antique.
So this is our 2015 directory. It's a 2,000 page edition. And we have, at the end of September, just finished our sales campaign for 2016. And without any price increase, the revenue from this directory has increased by 24.7%. That means that one single volume is no more feasible. So we will have in 2016, distributed in the middle of December, we will have a 2-volume book, and that will be for the city of Yangon. And we will have, even with a 2-volume book, probably something like 75% of the data of the total market included. We then have the second major city. We have the equivalent book for them, Mandalay, which you can see is also a 2,000-page product. This has also grown by another 5% in 2016. So we have here a product which clearly is the original print product, which is still growing. And we have, of course, an online product too, and that is bundled in the price. So when we sell into print, we're selling a package which includes online and mobile app too. So we distribute 135,000 Yangon books, 65,000 in Mandalay. We in addition have, which is what's across the bottom of the chart here, 14 vertical directories. We have specialist directories for business to business, for textile industry, for the health industry, food, advertising agencies, education industry, IT industry. And these are small publications which we distribute also once a year. And it's these verticals directories which we're now moving rapidly into online services. In addition, we have a magazine which was launched 12 months ago called My Yangon, which is the magazine on the far side. This is an entry into a new market, one that we're not specialists in, but one which is working so far quite well. But we have a very clear objective with the magazine, and that is to drive traffic to our online service. So every article that appears in the My Yangon magazine, which is a monthly publication, is either in English or it's in Myanmar language, and it links you then to the website, which gives you a translation, or it gives you a continuation of that article. We have articles which are linked to advertisers. We have advertorials, and it is very clearly focused to be a driver to online traffic in the main Yellow Pages product. This is our sales team. We're extremely proud that we have a very large field sales team, and as you can see from this picture, they're all ladies. The youngest is 18, the oldest is 32. Most come directly from university, and we have in Yangon almost 100 sales girls. We have in Mandalay over 50, and
so now we know your motivation.
Thank you, Paul, for sharing what we all have on our mind.
We'll all be there in your mind.
I haven't finished yet, Paul.
speechless, aren't you, Peter?
You can see it's very common in Myanmar that salespeople wear uniforms. They're very proud to be representing the company. They have a different color each day of the week. You see, here's the team again. This is on another occasion. And you'll like this one, Paul.
I bet they all have that on their desks.
I have it on my desk. I think it's a very interesting ethic, because the very first time I had involvement with MMRD, and I said, now, interesting that you only have girls in field sales force, you know, what's the strategy behind it? And the answer, and still today, is because the customers are men. And that's, I think, only part of our success. We have in the sales teams extremely high productivity, very high activity. This is an area that in my consultancy days I would measure very often in sales audits that I conducted, so I have a very good benchmark on a world basis to compare productivity levels. And we are talking with all of these girls in both Mandalay and in Yangon. We're talking on average 7 visits a day to customers. And that's an average, which means some are doing more. And we're closing contracts at least 2 a day. And those are statistics which, even I think in the prime days of Yellow Pages, would have stood very high in terms of productivity. So we measure, we control, and we allocate the market accordingly. And it's a tribute to 2 of my colleagues who came with me, the sales director, Manila Win, and Ted Tet, who's our sales manager, that they have a complete control over what's going on and a very, very high motivational impact. We have teams of salespeople that are extremely target-oriented, very much focused on hitting the targets. They are rewarded on very short-term targeting through commission, and it's very, very effective. So we have a critical part of our success is our ability to sell, and to sell cost-effectively. Now, I'm going on to talk a little bit later about how this sales process will need to change, and we are starting on that with, we launched in September a whole new sales training program. We've upgraded the reputation of sales training, and we've changed the sales training program from 2 days to 1 month. And that was launched in September, so we have now the first team that's been through that program, and we are so far very encouraged that a new sales approach designed to enable us to sell a whole range of products, obviously online products too. The early signs are very encouraging. So these are our digital products. I showed you the print, but we also have the online service, which is the Yellow Pages online. We have a mobile app for both of our 2 markets of Mandalay and Yangon. We have the online verticals. We have the Builder's Guide, which has just been launched this month. And the Builder's Guide is effectively the search engine of all of our builder-related classifications, with a very relevant editorial content to it as well. And that will be the first of our transition of verticals into online services. We started selling websites this week, in fact Wednesday this week, and we've already got behind the success of selling websites. You remember that 17% of the market is penetrated, and the opportunity to sell websites is based on our belief that the unpenetrated market is open and available to us. It's not our objective to sell websites to existing advertisers. Of course, they're very welcome, and we will talk to them, but we still have a significant part, as all Yellow Pages companies have, a significant majority piece of the market that are not traditional Yellow Pages advertisers. And those are the ones that we're focusing on to be selling websites, to build and to design websites, own domain websites to small businesses. The social media area is one that we're very cautious about. Everybody's using Facebook, but nobody's using it for commercial reasons. But it's very difficult to move into a digital area unless you have some competence and some reference to Facebook or social media in the sales process. We don't want to oversell it. We don't want to sell it wrongly. So our first stage is effectively to educate small businesses. We're going to start running at the beginning of next year a series of seminars where we invite small businesses to come along free of charge, and we will talk to them about Facebook and the opportunities in social media. Not with the objective of selling directly to them, but simply to position ourselves as being experts in this area and to build our reputation. This is just quickly some of our promotional material. This is a copy of a billboard advertisement. You can see that at least in Yangon there's a reasonable amount of English, so we have English language as well as Myanmar language. This is another billboard. We have, under the question mark, a particular motto and logo that we use of Baba Lulu, everything you need. This is a TV commercial, and if we could just... Got that? Okay. These are new mobile products, digital products, which we are planning for next year. Through the app, we're going to be offering coupons. We're going to be offering, particularly for restaurants, the opportunity to make special offers. Through GPS, we can make that offers for people that are in the locality. Having sold websites, it gives us the opportunity to sell videos on the websites. And reviews we currently offer. It's not a major area of interest so far in Myanmar, but we think that will change. And reservation services is also on the agenda for next year. In all of these cases, we're taking the motto, or I'm taking the approach that we want to be too early. The behavior is still very, very new of mobile phone usage. But I take the view that we'd rather be too early because the alternative is to be too late. So we're trying to issue, or we will be issuing products which we don't have great expectations will have high usage or high revenue generation in the short term, but ones which again will position us because we clearly want to be credible and to be renowned for offering, to be specialists in offering digital services. Reservations is a particular example. It is very, very unusual to make a reservation in a restaurant. It's simply not part of lifestyle. Visits to the doctor, visits to the dentist are also ad hoc. You don't make an appointment in advance, you just call by. So reservation services have slightly less value, but nonetheless ones which we will have on the agenda. So it's very early days, but there is certainly evidence, and we've talked always in our transformation process about timing. There's every evidence that Myanmar consumer behavior will move in the same directions as other countries, and that's something which we will follow. Now, I mentioned that, you know, having observed what's going on in the Yellow Pages industry for the last 10 years, I bring with me a lot of experiences which we will be looking at to implement in the Myanmar market. And under the area of strategic, one of the key things that I'm insisting on in the company is that we look on digital as incremental revenue stream. And I think there is evidence of other publishers that have benefited from taking this view. This means it's not our objective in the short term to shift everybody from print into online. Of course there will be a need to do that, there will be a relevance to do that. But there are stories of failure where Yellow Pages publishers have rather urgently and rather prematurely simply looked to shift their advertiser base from print into online. So we're very careful about that. We have a penetration which is around 10%, which means 90% is open. And that's, that's a very attractive piece of the market for us to develop online and digital services for. We've also gone through the same process that all Yellow Pages publishers have, is to say, well, what are our key competences? We have a database which is unique. We build our own database. We have teams that walk the streets and update every year the database. We'll be changing that next year so that the database is not only updated once a year, but it's updated on a much more frequent basis for the purposes of online up-to-date. And of course our sales coverage we have the largest sales force in Myanmar, and that's general for most Yellow Pages publishers, and that's of course a key strength for us. Yeah. So we need to change the sales approach. We have one which is extremely effective, and it's not our objective to tell everybody to change. Through a new sales training program, we have hired new people and trained them in a different way of selling, and we will use that as the basis for growing online. There's no reasons to change a sales technique that works, and we have, I guess, the advantage that having largely young salespeople, there is much more online and digital orientation than if we had a sales force that was much older. But we're going to invite people to join us on a new sales approach rather than force it. We're also very conscious that the productivity factors in selling online mean that the frequency of visit becomes a key factor. And as we touched on briefly yesterday, we want to be sending people to visit customers based on how much money, sales money, do we want to invest against what level of revenue potential do we have. The service factor is of course a new feature in selling websites. We have a client service team, which of course is an additional sales cost, but it is adding an area of expertise which is the fulfillment part of what we're selling. I think it's experience in many countries that launching new products is not difficult, but selling them effectively is the tough part of it. And we're very conscious of that too. We want to have products that really have, that are effective, that are measurable, and that we can sell with the great belief that we're adding ROI to the portfolio. Call tracking in print has never been a feature in Myanmar. It's not been technically possible. We're planning to introduce it next year in some of our vertical books. It is key for us to use ROI as a feature for what we're selling. We're already measuring ROI on our online services, and we have therefore tracking all of the links to our advertisers. And our number one at the moment in terms of ROI, in fact the ROI is not measurable because it's actually a free entry that is getting the highest rate of calls. So we are already looking at ROI for online, and we want to add print to that. But print we will start measuring next year. We're in again the traditional position that many Yellow Pages companies were in, where call tracking, before call tracking took place, the key measure of satisfaction was the retention rate. And we're enjoying 80 to 85% retention rates, which is as close as we can get at the moment to saying the customers must be satisfied. We also have an extremely high comeback rate of people that drop out the book and come back immediately the following year. So we're very confident that when we start call tracking, we're going to get some very high ROI numbers to add to our online usage. I mentioned the seminars for SMEs. This is part of our market strategy to be credible and to be experts in the digital market, and to give people that awareness. In terms of pricing of online products, it's clear that I think in all other markets, online services are a hell of a lot cheaper than print, and this of course has magnificent effect on the margins. We want to be particularly careful on that. We want to have online pricing based very much on usage, and we want to be careful that we don't fall down very quickly by simply shifting advertisers from print to online at much lower prices. So credibility is key, and the last point on this chart is the importance of Google and Facebook. Because of the shift very quickly in Myanmar from into mobile, then laptop usage and online services are not as popular as the usage of the mobile phone. Many people will know Facebook, but not everybody knows Google, which is an interesting consequence of that. But we're also very careful about this. We've seen people have a lot of experiences with Google, successful and not so successful. We have the privileged position of saying that we have things which Google don't have. We have sales coverage, we have a database, and we'll therefore very cautiously look after those assets before we get involved in partnerships with Google and also with Facebook, of course. So, tracking consumer behavior, we have weekly reports on the analytics as to how people are using our services, and consumer behavior in the cities is clearly on the rise, is changing much more rapidly than in rural areas. And understanding that behavior and responding accordingly is, of course, crucial. We're also planning to appoint somebody responsible for usage. This is another factor which was not normal in the Yellow Pages industry, but it's something now which is very key. If we're going to track consumer usage, we need to give it very high importance within the company, and we will have somebody responsible for usage of all of the products. Changing mentality, we've talked about that already, and it's an obvious point. We have an organization which is extremely competent at producing a once-a-year product, and to change the mentality to once a minute rather than once a year is not easy, and we're working on that. We're planning also our own internal seminars to educate our own employees on what digital is all about, so that every employee can understand the journey that we're going to go on, and they can understand what the company represents. I think this is a critical issue for the whole of society. I remember some years ago in Europe, in a market where I overheard somebody in a Yellow Pages company over lunch say to her colleague, "I don't tell people I'm in the Yellow Pages industry anymore, it's just too embarrassing." And I thought that was a great indictment of failure on behalf of that company to explain to their own employees what they were going through. So we plan to help our own employees understand what's going on. So those are all experiences which I bring with me from other markets, which I think will be just as appropriate in Myanmar, and ones which will lead and drive our transformation process. Now the future is somewhat uncertain. We have actually on Sunday this week a national election. As you know, the country has made enormous changes politically in the last 4 years, and the election will determine the next government, and it is being watched very carefully, certainly within the country but also internationally. There is for sure a lot of international interest, people who are actually waiting until the election is passed before they decide how they're going to invest in Myanmar. And I think the best that we all hope for is that the outcome will be considered to be optimistic and positive, whichever way it goes, so that people internationally feel comfortable that they can make investments in the country and get value from that. The technical infrastructure of the country, of course, is still very, very, very new. We have ourselves problems of getting regular and reliable internet lines. This again is gradually changing, but it is a key feature. A number of technical things we would like to do are not possible because of the failing infrastructure, and this is a key feature for us. Educational standard is also a feature. We have, it's not easy to hire qualified and experienced people into the company. Many people have limited experience of commerce and not the highest education standard. This has certainly changed, but it will only change, of course, over the period of a generation before we get the fruits of that. So I'm very positive about the future. I think I have this great advantage that I'm with a company that has great strength and has great depth in terms of customer base, advertiser base, and revenue. And the country, having lived there now for 5 months, I recommend it. You're all invited to come and see us. We'd love you to come over. And it's a country which will certainly leave you with positive feelings, and it's a beautiful country too. So we're just at the beginning, and that's what makes it fun, that's what makes it challenging, and it's the reason that I'm there. It's an exciting place to be. This is the final slide, which simply just confirms what I'm saying, is that for new product development, the very strong likelihood is that we're going to make an enormous leap. We're not going through the processes that all of the Western societies have been through, where laptops were much more, what was the next step. Yes, we have laptops, but I think we're going to make strategically the leap from book to mobile. Okay, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Peter. We have a few minutes if anyone has a question. Anyone have a question? Well, we have a couple. Okay, so why don't we start with the gentleman from Thailand.
Peter, that's very loud. On the one side, you talked that the consumer in Myanmar are following the international trends around the world. On the other side, you mentioned that online appointment booking is not an option. Online appointment booking is for sure a trend generally, what's going on. So can you explain how that fits together?
Sure. Well, yes, of course, online is key and it's valuable. But people are generally using their mobile phones to access any online service. So an app application is more popular at the moment than using online. We see the trends of usage in Facebook, for example, through mobile devices is growing very rapidly, and the usage of online is growing less rapidly.
Your point was also that people they just show up, they don't book, right?
Yeah, sure.
Is restaurants the same way with reservations?
Yes, there's some large restaurants which would take bookings, but the normal style is that you just call.
Is that changing? I mean, the behavior?
I'm not sure that it is. I think as the cities become more international, then that will bring that behavior with them.
Okay, so mobile appointment booking is
on the agenda.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
On the agenda.
We had another from the gentleman behind, the row behind.
Morning, Peter.
Hi.
We are from Myanmar as well, and we represent the IMAX Company Limited. We just would like to follow up a bit on what Peter has said. We agree that Myanmar is into a transition now, that more and more there will be usage of mobile applications and so forth, from the print form to the online and then the mobile application. And but what we like to, and I hope we can make it clear that we are IMAX Myanmar Company Limited is the official founder of the Myanmar Yellow Pages in 1993 with a trademark service logo of the walking finger. So I think, Peter, this is something that we like to highlight as well. Way back in 1993, okay, and IMAX Myanmar Company was founded in 1993, incorporated in 1993 with the official, as the official publication of the Myanmar Yellow Pages and with the walking finger logo. So I think this is something that we do not want to confuse the public between the Yangon directory and the Myanmar Yellow Pages. So I think this is something that we need to address. Okay.
I'm happy to address
Perhaps
that.
over coffee.
Thank you. Okay. This is because we have known Peter and MMRD and what the contribution towards Myanmar, and we are all together trying to uplift the Myanmar image in the international community. So we like to just clarify this situation. And now that the mobile application is coming into more and more into the picture, from the print version to the mobile online, and then the application, and this is what we are trying to do also, to elevate the company from the print to the mobile, online mobile. So this is something, but I think more importantly is not to create the confusion between Yangon Directory and the Myanmar Yellow Pages, because we are officially registered way back in 1993.
Yeah.
So this is something. And just to show you, we have the yellow finger, the yellow Myanmar Pages with the walking finger.
Sir,
Yeah.
I think that point has been made.
Okay.
Well, let me be the one to clarify. Yes, of
Okay.
course, there is
Please.
more than one publisher in the market. There's more
Yes.
than one product in the market.
Yeah.
We're perfectly that's perfectly
Yes.
fine. And
Yes.
competition is obviously a very good thing.
Right.
And
And I think the audience here is not, the audience that has to
That's right.
sort that
I mean,
out.
we are not, disputing anything, but just to make it official.
Okay,
In
understood.
for the ASMA members.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we are new
Right.
kid on the block.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
We're about out of time, Peter. I do have one question. You talk about, you know, the usage statistics, et cetera. What is the one number that you look at to say that, you know, the business, the transformation is accelerating, or that you sort of, your canary in the coal mine number? Is it smartphone penetration? What is it?
It's usage of digital devices. You know, we of course can measure the consumer usage and the analytics of that, and we do that in great detail every week. And it's slow movement, but it's very deliberate movement in the same places.
Do you expect it to be slow for a while and then suddenly rapid? And then, I mean, are you anticipating an acceleration of change at some point? I mean, is that sort of baked into your plan?
Yes, I mean, for example, SEO is relatively new, and we now have our own people that are fully qualified on that and are spending time on that, and we see movement of usage as a result of it. So, yeah, I think it will accelerate, but it is still, you know, it's from a low starting point.